Despite SAPOL making it well known that we'd be conducting an operation over the long weekend, disappointingly during that operation 111 people were detected positive to alcohol, 63 people were detected positive to drugs, 540 people were detected speeding, and 44 people were detected making a deliberate choice not to wear a seatbelt. Each one of those detections is one of the fatal fives that causes the most lives lost and serious injury crashes on our roads. As a direct result of that, SAPOL have developed an online initiative. 4 people have died on our roads in March this year, 4 lives lost. In 2019, 13 people lost their lives on our roads in March. We don't want that to be replicated this year. You've seen the online initiative that's been developed. We're hoping that people understand the symbolism of a bullet driving down a street, which is effectively a 1-ton bullet and can have massive ramifications and consequences if that's not controlled and if people aren't responsible. People are complacent, and we've started off the year poorly again, losing too many lives on our roads. I'd ask people to please be complicit in the solution to this problem and help us reduce lives lost on our roads.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. And you've just heard Bob give you the numbers there, and it is just not acceptable. People need to start taking responsibility for their actions. We've seen the initiative up on the screen here, and people need to be aware that when they're behind the wheel, they are in charge of the 1-ton bullet. They need to take responsibility for themselves. They need to make sure they do all they can to protect those others around them. Look, like a lot of the journalists here, I'm sure they are sick of being here in this place having discussions about the lives lost on our road. It's not acceptable. Everyone's doing all they can as far as building the infrastructure, as far as police being out there. You've heard the numbers that Bob's just portrayed into the media here. Police are out there doing their job. We are building the roads, we're improving the roads, we're doing all we can on that aspect. We need to make sure people behind the wheel start taking responsibility for their actions. I think everyone's fed up, and I think we need to look at the person in the car alongside us and make sure that when someone does look at you, you know you're behind the wheel, you're doing all you can to keep yourself and themselves as safe as possible. We don't want anyone driving a 1-ton bullet. We want people to be safe when they're behind the wheel on the road.
Questions, please? Well, what's your reaction? There's been 2 more deaths in the last 24 hours.
My reaction is that it's a tragedy. People need to understand that it's not simply a life lost on our road and a number. There is massive consequences and ripple effects that happen when somebody gets seriously injured or killed on our roads. It affects loved ones, it affects profession, it affects communities. And quite often, people never recover from what transpires. So it is incredibly frustrating, and I'd ask people just to be responsible. For the number of people that were detected over the long weekend and the previous operation we ran in regional South Australia for 5 weeks, we had nearly 1,700 people detected for speeding in that period. That's 1,700 incredibly selfish individuals that put themselves and innocent road users at risk, and it's totally unacceptable.
Will charges be laid over the crew's fatal crash?
That matter's subject to investigation. It's too early to say at this point.
Do you know exactly what happened there and what went wrong?
Oh, I know 2 vehicles have collided head-on and the matter's subject to investigation.
A witness has reported that the other driver was driving erratically, speeding up, slowing down on the wrong side of the road, and that the other driver was identified to police at the scene. Have you spoken to that driver yet? Have you investigators?
I don't have that level of detail at this point in time. The matter's being investigated.
What do you think of that type of behaviour on our roads?
Again, anybody who behaves dangerously on our roads is incredibly selfish. Not only are they putting themselves at risk, they're putting innocent road users. And to those people that behave like that, I would say to you, don't be complacent and think that it can't happen to you. We lost 114 people on our roads last year. You've seen the symbolism of the speeding bullet. Take responsibility. We don't want to lose people unnecessarily. And generally, every fatal collision and life lost on our roads is preventable.
In terms of the 5 details, 2,500 exceeding the speed limit, are most of those just above, or do you have a lot of high readings?
There's a range. There's people that creep over, and there's also people that exceed the speed limit significantly and make that deliberate choice.
Do you have, like, what were the worst?
I don't have that level of detail with me at the moment, but there were some excessive speeds and there were a number of vehicles that were seized as a result of that, and there were a number of people that had their licence suspended immediately.
Residents along that Kirkland Road were saying that it's 100 kilometres per hour, and residents calling for it to be multi-tagged. Do you think that's something that may help, or Minister, you may even be able to say if that would be something that may be considered if that road is limited because it's been apparently told to be correct?
Yeah, that would be a matter for the Minister for Transport, but in all these situations, again, as Bob pointed out, the investigation is ongoing, but we'll look at all aspects of accidents like this, incidents like this, but we need to really drive it back to the point that these are lives lost on our road. These are people that are not going home to their families. Think about it for 1 minute. If you were there, if you were impacted by an incident like this, how would it impact your life? What would it do to the way you go about your day-to-day living? We need to make sure we're taking responsibility for what we're doing on the roads, because you don't want someone in your family to be told they've lost a loved one because someone did the wrong thing on the road.
As the road safety minister, though, do you think that could be helpful on the second?
Look, those things are always looked at various points in time. Also, improving the roads and making the roads better is a really key element of what we have to look at here. And we're doing all of that work, investing billions of dollars into improving our road infrastructure to make our roads as safe as they can possibly be. Police are out there doing their job and doing it well. And if you're doing the wrong thing on the road, be prepared, because police will pull you over, police will catch you, and you will cop a hefty penalty. So we're doing everything we can. People need to take responsibility as well for their actions when they're behind the wheel.
Why is this initiative only online? Do you think that there'll be much in the reach?
Absolutely. Look, online as well as mainstream media are all really important avenues for us to get the message across. This is a strong message, a powerful message. We want to see this initiative pushed out online and make sure people get the message. When you're behind the wheel, you are driving a one-tonne bullet.
What's your reaction to last night? A man was seen driving erratically, and it's likely that an innocent driver has lost their life because of his actions.
Look, as Bob said, this is still being investigated, but any time there is a life lost on our roads, I mean, my stomach churns, and I'm not directly related to the people. Think about the families, think about the people in your community that are involved and how they would be impacted. I mean, we don't want to see it. People need to really stop and think about what they're doing and be aware that when they're behind the wheel, they are behind the wheel of a one-tonne bullet.
But this has all been said before, and the police have put out all of these pleas that seem to be falling on deaf ears.
And that's the point. That's why we need to say it even more. We need to drive this message even harder and tell people time and time again. And we need people to really take responsibility for what they're doing. When this message is coming to you, whether you're watching TV or listening to the radio, this is not just a message to go in one ear and out the other. This impacts every single person. We want every person to take this message on board and act accordingly.